Self-sabotaging is probably, if not one of the biggest things that people have to understand. So let me ask you this question then. What were you doing? You touched on it a little bit, but explored a little bit more. When you started to see all of these accolades, right? The money started to come and people started to recognize you and you were going here, you were going there. What take us back in that space of what were you doing? How were you self-sabotaging yourself? You explained it, you talked about it a little bit, but I want people to understand this because you're looking at somebody who is very super successful. Look, our interview should have been a couple of weeks ago, but it got pushed because she was in Phoenix shooting a huge podcast. No problem at all. That's totally fine. You've earned that right to be there. But take us in that space of what were you doing and how were you self-sabotaging? Was it physically? Was it mentally? Was it emotionally? Was it turning people away? You talked about being sick. Being sick is a big thing. Take us into that space because I think people need to understand when you can recognize when you are self-sabotaging and stop it before you further grow it. It's a massive change. So please help us understand what happened and how you corrected that. How did you correct that thinking to put you in a better space?
Yeah, well, okay. So first of all, at that time I didn't, right? And I went a year without touching my business and only working on referral. But I had done such a good job with my clients that I literally supported myself on referrals, which is pretty impressive for an entire year. I went back to school and I started acting. Okay. This was crazy because I've been thinking about it because this week I've been going through a similar thing and I'm always super honest with everybody. This stuff rears its new level, new devil. Okay. So this was 2 years ago.
Say that again. I'm very slow. I'm probably almost 20 years older than you. So you have to slow down. Say that last point again. I'm sorry I had to cut in, but you have to say that point again.
Yeah. New level, new devil. Every time, guys. If you can begin to expect that there will always be a devil at the new level, you will win. You need to know. And I posted something about it on my Instagram yesterday. About this specifically, what it looks like to self-sabotage. And I'll tell you guys, and then I'll go back to then because I didn't know that I was self-sabotaging back then. Now I know that my mind was trying to pull these things on me, or the devil was trying to pull these things on me. But basically the post that I shared yesterday was your mind is going to feel foggy and messy. The clear vision that you thought you had, the clear action steps are now going to be muddled, and you're going to have all these new paths. Oh, should I go do this thing? Should I go do this? Should I go do this? And you're going to feel literally chaos and confusion, and you're not going to know how to step forward. And every single path is going to feel like the right path. Understand, guys, God whispers, the devil yells. Okay. So that little thing in your heart, that's God. And we can just look at, I love God and the devil archetypes because they're very easy for our human mind to comprehend. We could say light and dark, good and bad, God and the devil, but I truly my perception of it is both these things exist within you and they're constantly battling to see which one's going to win. One of them is expansion and love and your greatness, and one of them is more contracted and things like that. You can look at it as a devil, you can look at whatever you want. I just like the terms, right? It's just so easy for us to comprehend. We're it makes sense to our human mind, right? Our minds can only understand so much, right? So basically, ultimately, it's going to feel really confusing because of again, your mind is trying to take you off course. So 2 years ago, I get off the plane in LA and it was almost an instant thing where I'm no longer selling my programs. And my mind is instantly telling me that people aren't interested. Because the fact is that I built up my business too in a sense that was very I wasn't future thinking. I was just built on every single month. So it's really easy to do 10K months when you're just focused on 1 month, because it's really easy to get a lot of leads. Whereas when you're actually trying to grow and have consistent, you need leads in your pipeline, right? I hadn't done that. So it was very easy for me to be oh, well, I don't have any leads in my pipeline. My business isn't working. Even though I had just had the highest month in business and was just invited to speak in LA. But this is what my mind was convincing me. So immediately I was oh, my business isn't working. And then I remember I was staying at my grandpa's house because I'd been living in Toronto and I went to Ottawa and I'm staying at his house and I'm sitting thinking to myself, like, oh, what if I'm not meant to coach? Again, I literally just got invited to speak in LA in front of 100 people. People adored me. People are like, you're so good at what you do. My client, I had my first millionaire client. People are loving me. And then I'm just like, what if I'm not meant to coach? So what happens? Now my life starts falling apart. I get in a car accident. I'm turning 28. I'm driving to Toronto. I'm going to move back to Ottawa. Like my whole life is falling apart. I'm taking zero actions in my business. And then I'm driving and it's like, what do I want to do? If I could do anything in the world, I would act. And so literally I just like go home, find an agent. She takes me, I start acting and I drop my entire business. And It was all unconscious. Yeah, all of it. And it took me a year to recognize that I had completely self-sabotaged. It was really hard.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Guys, listen to that whole thought process, this whole mind altering that she went through. She had just been invited to speak. She just gathered her first millionaire client. She's doing very successfully on the outside from a business standpoint, but internally she couldn't grow past all of this, the turmoil in her brain, this thought process of, no, you're not supposed to be where you're at, even though everything, and look, this happens to a lot of us. We're teaching and we're saying this is what it is, but even ourselves at times get hit with self-sabotage. Even at times we fall victim to the things that we actually preach to people and teach people. We actually fall victims to ourselves and take us, and it knocks us on your butt and you forget. And that's the thing, is like, you forget, oh no, I'm supposed to be here. My calling is something greater and I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And when you're not able to recognize it, took her a year to recognize that. Now she can recognize it, as she's already talked about. Yeah. It can move forward. So give us 2 actions, 3 actions that we can do when we start to self-sabotage, when we start to put ourselves in a box and say, nope, this is the box. You cannot grow out of this box. Give us 2 principles, 3 principles that we can do to get pushed through that self-sabotage so we can continue to grow.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great question. So I think it's really important to understand what your box is. So, anyone who's listening to this, figure out what your blueprint is, what your unconscious blueprint is. So what is the highest level of happiness, let's say in relationships, that you've ever achieved? What does this look like? Because this happens in relationship, guys, okay? You guys have the most beautiful night with your partner, the best date night ever, and then you guys get in a fight on the car ride home. Why? Because you guys are sabotaging the intimacy that you guys just created, because it's too much for your mind. It doesn't feel safe. So let's bring it back down. That's what the unconscious mind does, okay?
Yep.
So relationships, what is the max that you've had there? Wealth, what is the average income that you make consistently? Is it 5K, 10K, 20K, 100K, whatever it is? Write it out. That's your blueprint. Again, look at Trump, okay? This guy went bankrupt and then brings back his wealth exactly where it was. Why? Because his unconscious blueprint was set to that amount. You have men who make, if they made $10,000 a month when they used to make $1 million, they'd freak out. You know what I mean? Like, that is way below their blueprint. And guess what? Within a month, they'll be right back up at that 100 million or whatever amount, because that is their norm, right? Whereas other people, like, you'll look at some people, like bosses, like, I mean, it's in all these books that I read, like a sales guy, his boss will know this man makes 7K every single month. Oh, Jerry always does 7K. Jerry can do 7K in the first half of July, and then Jerry will stop working the rest of July, because that's his unconscious blueprint. So write out what your blueprint is, that what your current ceiling is. That way we know how we can get above it, and that way that when you start getting above it, it's going to be very normal for you to either take your foot off the gas or to do something to start sabotaging it and bringing you back to where you are. So you have to know where you're at, right? The other way is that you need to know how you self-sabotage. So are you and it's called upper limiting, and it's from this book by Hendricks, which is one of my absolute number one books to read. Gay talks about how like you can get sick. Like, look, I was sick 2 days ago. I got back from Phoenix and I was sick, like literally fever, throwing up, all the things. And I knew by the end of the day, it was upper limiting. I'm like, it's upper limiting. Instantly, I was able to start working again. It was like, just, you know what I mean? So you need to know how your mind is sabotaging you. So are you the one who gets sick? You know, are you the one who just like starts to get like unmotivated, lazy, whatever it is? Are you the one who takes your foot off the gas? Are you the one who starts to cause chaos or drama or problems in your life? You need to know what that looks like. Again, it's all unconscious. So like people don't realize this, but if you have a blueprint for, let's say, 5K per month, and every single time you get a bonus at work, you then get hit with a bill, that's your unconscious mind creating that, right? Like I have people that are like, every single time I make more money, I get my car breaks or something like that. It's like, yeah, because you don't believe you can have more money than that. So you're unconsciously pulling these situations in. So second thing is know how you're self-sabotaging. And then the best way to know is when you have like, anyone who's listening to this, like you need to have goals, you need to have a vision, you need to have a clear path to what you're headed towards, because the best way to know that you're self-sabotaging is when you're deviating off your path. You know, okay, you say to your trainer, I'm going to work out 4 times a week and I'm going to count my macros and I'm going to do this until I drop 15 pounds. And then a month in, you're like dropping your workouts to 2 and you're like having an extra cheat meal. Stop. Mm-hmm. You're sabotaging. Get back on course, get back on plan. You know, that's the easiest way. If you have a clear-cut plan, I feel like it's the easiest way to just be like, nope, not today, Satan. Let's get back on track.
Yeah, oh my gosh. A whole mastery class. Guys, she does this for, I mean, this is what she's just given these nuggets. And before I go into that, you're right. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks is one of the premier books that I always recommend people to read. My wife, the hot wife, and I, when we were on we listened to the entire book on a road trip, and we were able to identify self-sabotaging and upper limit, and then getting into that zone of genius. And it's, look, you're right. It's a constant fight. Like you're always in that battle of, this is where I'm comfortable. And when you pull out, I think of it like, you know, the story of the lobsters, right? The analogy of the lobster. You put a lobster in a pot and it's going to try to climb its way out. You put 2 lobsters in there. One lobster is like, I'm good. Water's great. The other lobster is like, I'm trying to get out. And that lobster will pull it. And if it keeps the one lobster that's trying to get out, the lobster that's staying in there, it'll break the lobster's leg. You throw another lobster, and then you have lobsters that are trying to get out, and the lobsters are staying in there like, do not wrestle, do not ruffle the water, and they will eventually, they'll break enough things and they'll end up just killing the lobster. And I think that's the mindset that you talk about, this limiting, this self-sabotaging, right? We're always fighting within ourselves. And then how do you get through and how do you break through? And the points that you just made are probably points that people hear all the time. You know, goal setting, mindset, vision, drive. What are you looking for? What are you pushing for? What are you driving for? But it's always good to hear from somebody who has a perspective like yourself. That's like, well, here's what I did. I messed up, self-sabotage for a complete year. And now we're back on. And now I'm like, all right, we're good. I'm good. I'm doing this. And listen, this is, you know, from someone who can speak from a position of strength, of not a very good childhood. Let's be it. She's already talked about the childhood, right? Lost her mom when she was 17. That's hard. I don't care. That's hard on anybody. Your dad's not around. He's gone now. Mom's not around. He's not gone. And then you're trying to figure out how to balance yourself in this life, how you're trying to figure out where you are and how you are and what you're doing. So let me ask this question. Why the transition from Canada to Mexico? I don't really need it. We don't obviously, you know, a lot of decisions, but you came down with your ex-husband, which is even crazier to think. Like, you would move from Canada down to Mexico. You guys are co-parenting, which is great. What was that change? Like, what sparked that change of we need change. We need change. And Mexico is the place to go.
Yeah. So I'm laughing because when we first landed here, I was like, am I living in my own personal hell? Like, I'm literally moving to paradise with my ex-husband. I'm like, what? And I remember being like so mad one day, like, oh, like, why do I have to come here with you? And he's like, you should just be grateful that like I even want to come and that our son, you know, then that we're on the same page. And I am, and I was, and it was just like one of those moments that was like, am I in hell? Like, what is happening? I could just see that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, I feel like Canada is going down a pretty dark path, and I don't know like how political you want to get into all of this, but I have pretty strong beliefs about everything going on. Like, I am completely against someone forcing me to get an injection or anything of the likes. It was to the point where I'm also like completely against someone forcing me to put something on my face. Like, I'm all for, if you feel the need to do something, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, you do you. And that's how it should be, right? Like, oh, you want to go burn your house to the ground, go burn your house to the ground, as long as you're not hurting anybody. But so I was like, I'm a very outspoken woman. I became known as like a freedom fighter in Canada. So I was like organizing protests. I was part of everything. I was speaking out against this. I was going out maskless. And anyways, I started getting like kicked out of stores a lot, all the time. It was like a norm, which was very stressful. And eventually one day I just kind of had it. This woman like basically was like right up in me, trying to attack me. She was filming me. Everyone at Walmart was watching. It was super stressful. I was like trying to get away from her. She ended up losing her job. She was like one of the vendors. The manager came. He's like, what are you doing? He got super upset with her. She was like filming me. And I just like broke down, and I had it on live. So the video went viral. I was getting like tons of messages, people either being like, good for you for standing up for yourself. Other people being like, as if you cried at the end, what a baby, blah, 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 all these things. Anyways, when people got wind that she got fired, they started like these Twitter threads against me, threatening my life. It was really intense. People got really crazy. In Canada at that point, like some of my friends got beaten up. Like, it was really like violent. It was pretty intense. And there was more than just that going on, right? We have all these agendas in schools and stuff like that. So, and for people in other countries, they were kind of watching going like, what is going on with Canada? Like, this is really crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So basically that day after that, that happened with that woman, I called my ex-husband. I was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, we'd been talking about leaving, and I was just like, I am done. I'm shaking. I cannot live like this anymore. I'm not a good mom. I'm not good to anybody like this. Let's go. And he's like, all right, fine. And we left a week later. So
there you go.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. And we had really considered the US, and I don't know that Mexico will be the forever place. I think in some ways, yes, but I my heart is, I feel like I'm an American at heart, you know, like I feel like that's the next destination, but it'll come when it's meant to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad. Look, guys, I mean, sometimes change just has to happen, right? Sometimes you're in a space and you're like, there's got to be something bigger and better. And you stood up for what you believed in, and you were like, hey, it's time to go. And I think the principle that is amazing behind that is, if you're not happy, then change.
100%.
You have the ability to change where you are. You have the ability, whether it's physically or mentally or emotionally, you have that ability to change.
Yeah.
Some of us just are nervous to change, while others are you just got to do it. How?
100%. Yeah.
How would you counsel, or what would you tell somebody, one or two principles that it's nervous to make these changes? That's like, I don't know if I do this because of, my family might be mad that I leave, or, this is just, people are like, you're nuts. Like, what would you say, one or two principles, or how you could help them build that confidence to say, no, this is my flag and I now have to move?
Yeah, well, like, people thought I was like, again, my family has completely different beliefs than me. They're all like vaccinated and all the things. So they're like, are you crazy? Like, they think I'm absolutely insane. And you have to not care what other people think. Like, that's the number one thing. Like, are you living your life for yourself or everybody else? Are you caught in these cycles of people pleasing and trying to make everybody else happy? Because if you're living your life trying to make your parents happy and things like that, you will never be happy. We're trying to make ourselves happy here, not in a selfish way, but again, like even Gary Vee, David Deida talks about it as well, how you need to live your life as though your parents are gone. because most people live their life trying to live up to their expectations. So it's like, get really honest with yourself and your heart and ask yourself, are you living the life that you want to be living? And who are you living it for? Are you living it to keep up with the Joneses? Are you living it because it's the life that you should be living? Or is this a life that you want to live? I'm pretty sure that most people are not anywhere near the life that they truly want to live, right? So I think the biggest thing is be okay with the fact that you will be misunderstood, potentially disliked, and that's okay, because all that matters truly is that you like yourself. That's it. We're not, but like, what is that? Like, oh, we want them to like us, but we're okay if we don't like ourselves. No, put yourself first. And then the other thing that you need to understand is that your soul is here to expand and to grow. So your soul is never going to ask you to do something that comes really easily to you, because there's no growth there. Your soul is going to ask you to do the scary things. Move to the other country, quit that job, start that business, do that thing, whatever it is, right? So when your soul says jump, you jump. And that's that, I said God whispers, the devil yells. You'll get this little inkling in your heart, like, oh, it's time to quit this job. And then it's your mind, which to me is like, can be the enemy, that's like, oh, but you just got this job, or how are you going to make money? No. Your soul, your heart, God, whatever you want to call it, said, leave the job. Like some people are like, how can I, your heart tells you move to this new country, but I just moved into this apartment, but how am I going to make it work? No buts. Anytime you hear but, that's not it. You literally have to follow those like crazy jumps. That's how you're going to live the best life. Oh man.
Woo. That last little part there is going to make a lot of people, shake a little bit, because it is right. The heart says do this, but the brain says, nope, this is our upper limit, guys. Like, this is what we are meant for. This ceiling right here is what we are meant for. The heart says, but we have more to give. And the point that I really want to hit home on is what Kelsey was saying was, you have more to give. So if it is no, we need a new job. Oh no, we need to move to a different place, state, country, whatever it may be, because you have more to give. And you're living your best life. Every parent wants their child to live the best life they can live. Every parent wants their child to live a higher level of living than how we were able to raise our own kids. And so I think it's very important to understand that it's just, you got to following your passions and following those insights that you get changes, because you have you're giving us the energy and you're giving us the passion of what you have behind of what you do. This podcast was built for the uncovering of people, of individuals, to take people that are successful like yourself, strip it all down and say, what is the core? And as we bring this full circle, you'll see that her whole life, Kelsey's life, has been built on once she was abandoned, that she was like, I must not feel worthy enough for my own dad to be around me because I just wanted to be a little girl. Now she flips it on her head and says, I can tell you, client, that's not the case. The case is that I'm here because of the trauma that I went through, but now I'm over it. So now I can help you become the best version of yourself. And people are brought into our lives all the time to help us become and elevate who we are and elevate our purpose in life. And so sometimes we go through trials and experiences, not because it's right then it sucks 100%, but sometimes it's because somebody else out in the world needs you, needs me, needs somebody to come to them and say, I know what you're going through. I know the pain you're going through, but I'm going to tell you, it will get better. It took you from 3 to 20 years old. You're talking about almost 17 years to recognize, oh, actually, that was a blessing. Like you had said earlier, that if my dad, who was a heroin addict, crack addict, had massive addictions, if he was in my life, that could have been a completely different story that was written for me. Powerful. Unbelievable, guys. I knew this was going to be fun. I knew we'd have a lot of controversy in here and topics that were brought up, but someone who teaches us on a daily and a weekly and a monthly, and this is your life's mission, unfreaking believable. Oprah better watch out. Oprah better watch out. It's going to be amazing. Kelsey, All right, as we wrap up, because we want to be, obviously respectful of your time, and you got a lot of clients, please tell us kind of what you're doing, the mission behind your companies, how we can find you. Give us some insight about the companies and what they bring to individuals.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And this was so fun. So honestly, my biggest thing is that I want to allow people to have the freedom that they truly desire, right? So I think that one of the things that makes me a little bit different is that I don't believe that we're meant to be part of the system and that we're meant to have, like, be at the mercy of these different jobs. And you know what I mean? Like, I truly feel like people are meant to live the biggest life that they could possibly live. You're here to live out your biggest dreams and to find freedom in all ways. So mind, body, soul, you name it. So basically at the New Feminine, we have our university. One of the things that people can do is they can join our like coach or our mirror method program. So I literally teach people my like unique method of life coaching, which is like an amalgamation of neurolinguistic programming, quantum healing, and then all the experience that I've had over the years of coaching myself and other clients. So I teach women how to like become a coach. And ultimately that to me matters so much because our world needs very deep healing. And there are so many coaches out in the world who don't have any certifications or anything. And I want to make sure that we're creating coaches that can actually transform people at a very deep level. So that's one of the ways that we work with people. Another thing that I do is I take women through this beautiful program called the Rite of Passage. And it truly is it's like a passage from, and this is something that we've lost, like in ancient times, men would go through Rite of Passages, right? Women would go through Rite of Passages as well. And this really takes women from the wounded princess, Miss Independent, I can do it all myself, into the queen archetype, into the mother archetype. And these are real archetypes, and that is like an archetype of service to the world, right? So it's very powerful. That's probably my absolute favorite program in the world. And then I also have women who sell their programs and courses within the company. We have a very big vision for what this is going to be, and it's just slowly growing. So I'm really excited for that. The Sophia Initiative is a nonprofit. Since moving, I really did have to, you got to put your oxygen mask on before you can help anybody else. So I've had to take a little bit of a breather on that, take a little bit of a break to get me back. Moving to a new country was pretty big. But same thing, the Sophia Initiative is ultimately to help generational trauma and to heal this and to heal the families who have addiction or who are impoverished and things like that. And we know that those are just cycles that continue and continue, right? So someone needs to break those cycles. So that's what really this nonprofit is all about. And I'm excited to get that going again. And I'm not sure how that's going to happen because I think it will very much be more US based than anything else. There's not a lot of place here in Mexico to do that type of work. It's very interesting. But yeah, so those are the different ways that people can work with me. I do work one-on-one with clients, and ultimately I do the mindset and the business. So I help people build their businesses up to 6 figures. And it's all the energetic foundational work to make that happen. Also a lot of strategies, we didn't talk about business, but I love business and all the things. I think you need to. But yeah, that's really how people can find me and work with me. And then I do public speaking as well. So yeah.
Crushed it. We will have all the links, all her social media links, all the links to the business. This has been an amazing interview. I can tell that people are going to go back and listen to this one. Very powerful. A lot of opening up your who you are to us, and we on this end, thank you for letting us get into that space with you. So as we wrap up. Before I do all of this, give me $5. Give us 5 books that you would recommend anybody to read and say, these are the books, and this is the reason why you need to read this book.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me, by the way. This was so fun, and I love sharing my heart with everybody. So thank you. The Big Leap, we already talked about it. That book completely changed my life. I think that everyone needs to read it. And I feel like there's some sort of like hypnotic language in it because it feels like everyone who reads it super fast from start to finish. So yeah. Read that book. It's easy. The Way of the Superior Man by Deida is a number 1. Like truly that book has changed my life. It will allow you to understand masculinity and femininity on every single level. I feel like every man should listen to that book. Also every woman, so that she can understand what it is, because he does talk about like the superior woman as well and things like that. And that would be the woman who's like the opposite of a doormat, right? And that's the kind of woman that inspires a man to elevate himself. So that book absolutely changed my life. this book that I'm about to say, not everyone's going to go listen to it unless they're ready, like on a very spiritual level. And it's called Busting Loose from the Money Game. It's not just about money, but that is the premise of it all. This book literally will take you down you will think that you are going crazy. So I suggest reading or listening to it with someone. You know, Cam, you talked about you and your wife listening to a book together. Listen to it together, or else you will be like alone in crazy town, looking around the world, being like, am I okay? So listen to it with someone, so you have someone to really like, work through that with. Another book is the book Pussy. For women, that is one of the most powerful books I've ever listened to. I know the name is a little bit edgy for a lot of people, but that book will also very much change any woman's life. It's really about reconnecting to ourselves, our femininity, and becoming like the woman that we are here to be. Completely changed my life. And so did the book Untamed. So just the name, like I got chills. And I feel like that is a book a little bit more for women as well, but it's just like, even just the first chapter is about like an animal that's in a cage and how she thinks that that's like her entire life. And it's just like, but there's a life beyond the cage. So it's so good. I have chills. Those are the 5 books.
Oh, I love it. I love that last point that you made. I was in a conference one time and heard a gentleman. He gave a quote. He said, I would rather starve as a free lion than be fed like a caged animal. And I believe what you have shared with us today will help so many of us get out of that cage. I want to ask you this one last question before I let you go.
Yeah.
If you were to see your 5-year-old self today, what would you think your 5-year-old self would say to you?
Oh, it's so interesting because I thought you were going to say, what would you want to say to her? And I'm like, oh, that's easy. Be yourself. You know, what would I think she would say to me? Are you going to make me cry at the end of your podcast? What would she say to me? Probably to keep going, and that she's really proud, and that she's like really excited for where we're headed, you know, but to keep going. That's
awesome. There's something about a 5-year-old, something about your 5-year-old. I can remember vividly as a 5-year-old that I said by the age of 45, I want to be in a position where I'd never have to work again. And very vividly remember saying that. And so I love that. You're the first person on the podcast I've actually asked that question to. And from here on, I'm going to be asking those questions. So guys, this has been a phenomenal. Kelsey, we cannot thank you enough for coming on, just dumping us full of knowledge. Go back, listen. You'll have copious amounts of notes. Pause it. Of course, like and share, guys. Share it with people who need to hear this, that have been through trauma, that have lost something, they've been through cancer, lost their parents, struggle with mental illness, because this covers a variety of everything in here. This has been so awesome. This is going to be an amazing episode of The Art Study of You. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And we will catch you again on the next episode. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.